الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا وقودها الناس والحجارة عليها ملائكة غلاظ شداد لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون صدق الله العظيم. My dear respected listeners, those who are here joining us for this parenting course, today inshallah we want to start a conversation about parenting in Islam, and we will be doing a few discussions here and there inshallah. I'm so happy that so many of you decided that this is an important enough topic that we can start discussing, start looking at different perspectives from an Islamic point of view and also from a practical point of view, because many of us here would either be parents who have to deal with their kids or would be someone who might be looking at learning the importance of parenting and importance of dealing with children who they might have in their care or wish to inshallah be blessed with one day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give. So as we start today's conversation and we delve into the whole topic, I want to just mention first of all that the way that we'll be doing this topic, and as you realize too as well, the timings of this topic that we just started would have been a little later than we anticipated. 6:30 is what we advertised, and it takes a little bit of time inshallah from Maghrib Salah to be able to start today's session. That means we would be starting every week a little bit later until we can see the time of Maghrib Salah a little lower. So I'm aiming for next week inshallah. From now on we'll be starting at 6:45 and we'll take it inshallah at 6:30 up to to 7:30 inshallah. So that's the first thing. The second thing is today, I want to just do a little recap of general topics and how important it is as believing Muslim men and women to understand how important it is for us to put the right values, to do the right ta'aleem, to do the right tarbiyah, and to really be concerned about the whole topic of parenting as a Muslim and as a believer. And to put some context to what you would hear from the modern world as well. There are some really good things and researches that have been done that can benefit us in some way. So I'll be highlighting some of those things as we go forward as well, inshallah. Audio is not that good. So today's session would be a conversation. So we would try to, inshallah, take some feedback from yourself as well. What I'll do as well is I will try to improve on my audio system, inshallah, for next week. So without further ado, just get onto this. So Islamic parenting is the major topic. What I was thinking when we started this course is that let's look at it from a Quranic perspective. Because in the Quran, there are so many different examples of youth, young people. Parenting itself has been introduced in different ways into the Quran. So this is something that I feel we could have taken as a slant or taken as a lens that we'll be looking at this whole course, inshallah. Nevertheless, some of the topics that we'll be covering, inshallah, which may change a little bit or have some dimensions of being broken up into several parts, inshallah, is parenting and its place in Islam. So we'll touch a little bit about that today. The natural love for children and how we as parents should enhance and nurture that love that we have, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed inherently in our hearts, the responsibility of the dini upbringing, and there's a whole amount of preparation that we should be doing as Muslims for that as well. The psychology of a child, there's different types of stages a child generally is in, and with those stages, a parent is supposed to act accordingly. Without those stages, we won't be able to correctly do for our children as we should be doing if we don't understand those stages. And in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, you would see evidently some of the practices that he would encourage and how he would deal with some of the youth. You would realize that the Prophet ﷺ had a very good command of the stage of the child and how he would deal with children at that age as well. Also, punishments is a very big topic and one of importance. We generally have to discipline our children, and this is part of parenting as well, because there would be some instances where you need to guide them towards the right direction, and sometimes that may incur some type of consequences. What is the Islamic perspective in this as well, and how should we be managing this as believers? And you know, some of the kind of like challenges that we have as Muslims as well. And I'd like to hear some of your points on this topic as well. We'll talk about the social dynamics, because this is a very important aspect of living with people. Sometimes it's even our family members. You all would know this. Sometimes it's your family members who might be the issue in your parenting, in your parenting style as well. And you know, how you would want your child to be brought up. Our own closest ones, you know, our grandparents and their grandparents and uncles and aunts and your siblings, their aunts and uncles might be the one can be a bit hindrance to their upbringing as well, introducing things that might or might not be beneficial for them as well. So that's something that should be discussed, and we should find some type of solutions towards it as well. Also, in our values and dimensions, we need to kind of have a list ready for some of the things that you think is very important, and also Islam generally would set as important for a child, and ensure that they grow up with these types of values and different types of, you know, etiquettes and so on. You know, one of the things to note here is that some of our values as believers, Muslims, is not unique to civilization in itself. And there are some things in Western civilization or where we grow up and how we grow up that might be in Islam. Two of them sometimes intertwine, but generally speaking, Islam would have a lot more importance to certain topics that may or may not be highlighted generally as well in parenting. So this is something to be mindful of, and unfortunately, it's a big thing that a lot of people miss as well as parenting in this modern world that we live in. Also, games and influences, and how does that affect our children? And then just to mention on this, some of the games and some of the, you know, media and entertainment that happens around our children, and our children are exposed to in a very big way. You know, it's millions and billions of dollars that is invested for us or for our children or for the buyer or for the person who they want to attract to become hooked and addicted to these type of games. So imagine the type of resources that is put into these types of games, and we just, you know, if we don't be mindful of what you're putting in and what the child is being exposed to, then that can be a very detrimental intake for your child, you know, worse than the drugs and the heroin and the cocaine and stuff that that you so fear for our children. So we generally have to think about that. Also, tweens and teens, we do have young children who might be very, you know, interesting. Their personalities themselves are now being developed, but yet you see such stark qualities within them, and something to be really happy about sometimes, but to manage it can be a different story. And also teenagers, when we reach that age, it's a whole different ball game, and we need to kind of like up our game when it comes to teens and so on. So that's something that's very important. Also, some of the topics that I probably didn't mention here is things like parenting styles. How are you as a parenting style? How much of our own personality and our own practices as a person do you actually recognize? And is it something that you are new towards, self-discovery, or is it that you do understand some of your limitations, how you react with other people, what are some of the challenges that you face as a person? Because this is definitely one of the things that affect children when they're growing up. So as I start, inshallah, I'm not really intending too much to go into it fully, but what I would like to hear from you all is a little bit of your feedback on some of the things that you hope to achieve from this course, and also some of the challenges that you may be facing as well, that you wish maybe that we can cover when it comes to these topics. There's also what you would call a pre-course survey that we'll be sending out by early as tomorrow. I will ask you all to kind of like fill it out and try to give us some feedback about, you know, what are some of your practices, what are some of your challenges, so we can get some data to start working on that, inshallah. So I'm just going to open up the floor for now, and whilst we're having that conversation, I'll try to pull in here and there a few topics that we can probably discuss with the comments that would come in. So feel free, come on, let's go have a conversation. And if you all know some of the courses that I would do, I would try to get some kind of engagement. So please feel free to do so without me starting to force you. This is not a course meant to ghost the participation, but try to be part of it as well, inshallah, and bring up some of the things so everybody benefits. Questions that might be asked also benefits others, and something that we can definitely hope that we get some kind of barakah and goodness from, inshallah. So opening the floor now, let's allow you to unmute yourself if you wish. And you can do that by unmuting, or you can also type in the chat as well, inshallah. So let's see how to do this. So go on. Let's see who is going to be the first one to start that process, inshallah. Don't have me talking to myself. Okay, assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, Zahid, do we have the unmute feature there? Assalamu alaikum. Will you be discussing dealing with dealing with non-Muslim family? Yes, so that's something that is important as well, and that comes up in the topic around what we'll be doing around social dynamics, because that's a very big issue that we face many a times, because non-Muslims' practices are very different to ours. And sometimes it can be general things that happen, maybe their religious festivals or their practices, whether they do certain acts that we may not do. And those tend to be a little bit easier to deal with. What becomes the way harder of a situation is when non-Muslims' values conflict with our values. And that's really, really hard, because sometimes you have cousins that they speak a certain way, they might have different languages that they might use more, because in Islam, and that's the beauty of Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has talked about وَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا, that speak good speech, one that is beneficial. So as a Muslim, generally we are taught, and this is part of our practice, our social etiquette, which sometimes is missed, but the point is, when you look into Islam, there's a very heavy emphasis for our social etiquette and how we interact with others. So we would teach our children how to speak what types of words to use, don't use foul languages and so on. That might not be heavily emphasized in another religion. So then it becomes a little problematic because your child then becomes influenced by the speaking or the discussions and the types of movies that are looked at, and all the different things that happen in their space. So it's definitely something that can affect the family and the whole aspect of parenting as well. So jazakallah for that. Questions as well. Come on, give us some feedback or some of the issues that you may be facing as well. So next topic is, my focus is what needs to be done prior to become a parent. And that's a beautiful question and thought process that you have if someone's now becoming a parent and is looking towards getting and gaining information about parenting. That's so noble of a idea that Allah has blessed you with, because parenting itself actually starts way before the child is conceived. And even with that, we will talk about it, it will come up. The Prophet ﷺ has taught about the type of people that you should get married to, because marriage would start that process of family. And family itself is something that is important. Islam is very pro-family. The society is built on families. And when families are strong, then the ummah would become strong. Communities are strong. Masajid are strong, betterment in everywhere is strong, the economy is strong, everything becomes really, really strong. So it starts with parenting and it starts with the home. Very important. And maybe we don't talk about it enough, and that's why we have these types of courses. And I'll thank all of those people who would put in effort, inshallah, to have this going. Both Nur Islam and Al-Ihsaan would be hosts of this, co-hosting this course, inshallah. And we do try our best to talk about the topics which are very relevant and needed in our society. So with your, inshallah, contributions as well, and with everyone's sincerity and intention, obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, inshallah, put barakah and guide us towards a better practice for all of us participants here. And then, inshallah, we can use this for the future of propagating the importance of parenting as a Muslim, and also to have a better, stronger society, inshallah. Is it open for non-Muslims as well? Definitely. This is not going to be exclusive for Muslims, but I'm pretty sure any non-Muslim who listens to some of the values and the types of discussions that we talk about from an Islamic point of view, they'll really be interested in knowing more, because Islam really does touch a lot of topics and is very beneficial for us generally in our lifestyle and how we live as people. So I would encourage anyone to bring anyone else into this course. And I hope that we really do enjoy the sessions that we have. And we will try to take as much engagements as we can when we move forward, inshallah. So let me just take off this screen sharing by the time. Next question or comment, feel free, just pop it in, inshallah, and I'll be looking at this, yeah? Okay, next topic is this lecture. Okay, how to get my kids away from the regular YouTube videos to more Islamic videos. That's an interesting one, and that comes up in one of the topics. So we'll touch a little bit on technology. Technology is a whole different part of our life now. Technology and the way how we interact with it and how we grow up was a little different to how our kids are growing up. So it's kind of like now going to be part of their nurturing, because you're going to have so much media around. As much as you try to hide from it, as try to keep it away, there's a point where you will be engaging with it and need to engage with it. So that is something from the parenting perspective that is important, and the parent themselves need to plan and understand the technology around them. So, I mean, I wouldn't be able to answer everything now because we will take it as a full topic, inshallah. But what I would say here is that the more you learn about technology for the benefit of controlling and being able to allow your children with that much, which is which is okay for them and beneficial, then we have to learn that much. And some parents, unfortunately, they struggle with the technology. In fact, many of you all coming on this course, being an online course, they have a certain level of understanding of technology to be able to join here. And generally speaking, people who would have not been able to join this course easily is because they weren't able to even log in, join a Zoom meeting, click on the link, and be here with us online. So I do always encourage parents to be very informed about technology and try to understand it, because that's the age our children are learning and growing up in. And they would understand it way more naturally or intrinsically. They grasp these things without thinking about it, and it's part of their general natures now. So for us, what you call post, there's a word that they refer to it as so it's like a digital mind and a non-digital mind, a simple term. Kids are now digital minded because it's part of how they grow up and interact with information around them. Many people before that were not digitally oriented. Digital, when I say digital, I mean technology. So, I mean, as you would say, technology savvy and non-savvy and all that. Okay, very interesting in how to discipline, because it has happened and requires patience. And lately we are seeing that in some very scary and sad cases, children being killed or abused. So how do we discipline or guide how to balance? And this is a really important point, and which I will take as a whole topic. It's actually a very difficult one as well. And parenting, one, we could talk about the theories. One, we could talk about for example, there are certain ahadith that talks specifically on aspects of punishment and parenting, and how they discipline, and maybe how the Prophet ﷺ interacted with some children. So we can learn a few lessons here and there. But when it comes to a practical aspect, and those who are parents, they can realize, sometimes, I'm telling you from, experience point of view. I've got 3 kids, and 3 of them you can see are very different. The youngest being a baby, but the other 2, they're very different personalities, and actually you would see each child is a different child, and that's one thing as well. We'll talk about comparing children even in the house and then externally from other parties as well. It becomes a big problem. Anyway, the point I'm making is that with children, when you expect that you're going to try to do certain practices, it's not always very easy to implement them. And you may decide that, okay, here what, we're not going to do certain actions, or we might not beat our children, or we might not spank them at all, or we just talk to them, reason with them, and so on. And then it comes to a time where, you don't have that control maybe, or, the patience, as you say, ran out, or you might, inherently being grown up or disciplined like that, and then now you, without having much thought, you act out exactly how you were treated as a child. So that was very important as well. And the word that you use there, abuse tends to come a lot in our society, and sometimes we might think, oh, that's when you beat a child until the child is has a broken body part and there's marks on the body and so on. No, but abuse is also mental abuse. Sometimes it's educational abuse that takes place. Sometimes it's dini abuse that takes place. So there's so much rights and so much responsibilities as being a parent. And subhanAllah, Allah gives us the strength to do it. But it's something that you have to understand that it's really a challenge. And it's also something that Allah will give you the strength if you're true and sincere to it, and when you keep working towards it, it becomes easier and better once you start putting the right things in place, inshallah. So I mean, that's what this conversation is about, is try to do some of those practices to make it better, and try to improve our practices. So the point I was making of abuse is that many of us are not in a complaining way. I'm not saying it because I'm trying to point fingers, because wallahi, our parents are, I just did khutbah on this topic. Our parents are what you call muharim. They have a cloak of sanctity over them now. Because they're parents, we would always be respectful to them, always treat them, never look down on them, always be وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, don't say anything that would even be distasteful to them, disliked by them, and say things that are good, right, to our parents. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to maintain the structure, the organizational structure of society, and that starts with parents. And when you have respect and so on for parents, inshallah, that will start stemming down and being able to penetrate the different parts of society. But the point I'm making is that many of us, or many parents, have abused their children in some way, in some form. And not sometimes not intentionally, but sometimes we are products of that. And it might not be, as we'd say, the severe types of abuse, because there are sexual abuse that takes place, there are physical abuse that takes place, and so on. And those are all given wrongs of society, and everyone could quickly understand that. But I'm talking about structured societies which have, or structured homes which have, a nuclear family, and you would think that, okay, the parent understands what or what not to do and how important certain aspects and points are in raising children, but they completely miss it, and they don't have that, thought in their mind, let me rethink how I do these things. And then years pass and years pass, and that's why I always say, little habits that we have that are bad, it will continuously build into big mountains afterwards that become big problems that we can't deal with. And similarly, good little practices that are done in the regularly, and little by little, it becomes a very big, gems and jewels that we can, inshallah, be happy for. So it's very important to start being consistent in good practices and desist in our consistency in bad practices, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. There are good topics. I have two girls, age 12 and 7, with things going on in society today, especially with LGBTQ and games and influences, children, challenges. Sometimes we look forward for all this advice. Okay. Very good. Jazakumullah for that as well. And as you just mentioned as well, the LGBTQ campaign that takes place right now in the world, and the kind of funding that they get, it's ridiculously satanic. The way how much effort and how much emphasis and how much funding, how much millions of dollars are actually propagated, you can clearly see there's a clear agenda to destroy humanity. And that's actually a fear in even America, in societies that have already accepted the whole LGBTQ topic, right? And the acceptance and so on, and how they are so subtle in their selling of that. Anyway, the point I'm making is, even in America now, there's a fear that it becomes so rampant that the whole further, the generations to come would be wiped out, in a sense, in sense of there would be no procreation, there would be no more children being born, and there's going to be a whole bunch of problems that they have already anticipated, because there's too much effort that has gone into this whole LGBTQ, and it's now becoming such a big problem that they anticipate that, they're not talking about it because it's a drive by some type of satanic movement to keep it going and keep it alive. And now that's creeping up in our shores as well, and it will be, pushed all over the world as well, because there's a clear agenda behind it, and it's also being clearly funded and pushed by groups of people that have or want something to happen from there. So we can see the type of efforts that's going on. We don't have to even shy away from what's happening right now in society there on this topic. We wrote a book as well from the Islamic Scholars Network, and I'll share this book with you, on different topics around LGBTQ, and it's a good guide for all parents to have, and even to talk to children at a certain age about it. And we'll talk about that, what should be some of the practices to try and maintain sort of stability around these topics as well, inshallah. Other question or comment here. So there's one co-parent peacefully with the ex-husband who does nothing for his kids. So that's something that's going to be hard and very difficult. And a pro-Islamic society would ensure that the husband or the father is very, very much involved in the children, because he has an equal responsibility for the upbringing of his children. And with being a negligent father is one of the big reasons why society is in a mess as well, because a father has a certain role in his life. And that's why he's made the Amir of the house. And now when the separation takes place, it does affect everyone. And that's something we have to drive for fathers to understand that, okay, this is Allah's going to ask you on the day of judgment. Why were you the relic and why wouldn't you fulfill the responsibilities over your child? You may not have the responsibility over the wife anymore, but now you have the responsibility over the child, and that continues. And fathers need to step up and start as you would say, being responsible. So that's something that's really, really important, inshallah. And I hope that we can try to attract that importance to all fathers, especially. And mothers, alhamdulillah, mothers have an inherent desire to serve and to be there for their children, and they have a lot more love and concern for their upbringing and so on. So it's a little tad bit easier, but for the wife, for the woman, for the mother, it can be difficult in so many different ways as well. So there's always a balance that is needed in a home. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed so many different types of advices around these things. And we should all, genuinely try to be the best that we can be. If you know the word ihsan itself is أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. So the Prophet ﷺ was asked in a very encompassing hadith, what is ihsan? Ihsan, and the Prophet ﷺ replied that you worship Allah as if you can see him. And if you can't see him, then no, definitely he can see you. It means though worship Allah means do all the things that Allah expects of you as a person living who has given the opportunity of life. Do it in the best of all manners. And this is why the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned كتب الله في كل شيء كتب الله الإحسان في كل شيء, that Allah has written this quality of ihsan in everything that we do. So we should become the best at everything that we do. The way that we speak, it should be the best. The way that we walk, it should be the best. The way that we write, we converse, those are, our own personal things. But when we are fathers, we should try to be the best father you can be. When you are a wife, try to be the best wife you can be. When you are a child, try to be the best child that you can be. A worker in work, try to be the best worker that you are. So there's so many different things that we should be working on as people. Another comment here. How do you discipline a teenage boy as a single mother without any male figures present, without losing patience? And this can be really tricky and hard as a mother. And what I would advise, and I always advise, we do have, I work with youth as well, and we have a youth group which we meet every week. One of the best ways that mothers should be looking, sometimes because unfortunately fathers can't fulfill certain responsibilities. Let's just be real about that. Mothers should always have certain leaders or certain people around them that they can build some type of relationship with their child and that person. And that's very important. That's one of the most important, sometimes the thing that steers our children towards goodness and saves them from evil. Good, pious company. So good, pious companies should be sought out and something should be looked for from us as parents, and try to see who are the people you're going to revere and try to bring those people up a little bit in respect, so our children can see someone that they can imitate or have some type of conversation with. And this, it has a little bit of topics around that and a little bit of things to be mindful of around that too. But nevertheless, this is a very fundamental principle that we should have as people as well, because we are very social creatures and we definitely need to interact with other people. And pious company is something that you should all look for and try to maintain as believers as well, inshallah. I think parenting requires a level of self-awareness. That's very true. Paying attention to how you react to situations with your child and taking a moment to process and act rather than to react. That's a very good point, inshallah. Very encompassing statement there, and I think that's very true. Looking forward to hearing how to keep communication open where kids feel comfortable to share, especially going into teens. I'd appreciate that. Jazakallah khair. So that's very important as well, and I do appreciate some of the feedback that we got there. So on a quick note, right, if I was to ask the group here, how many of us do understand our parenting technique, or understand that there is different types of parenting techniques? Not fully, you don't have to explain yourself fully, but how much of us feel confident that you do understand somewhat of your parenting technique, and you know how you react to certain things? You can message here as well. Or how many of us feel that there's more work to be done?
Assalamu alaikum.
And anyone wants to say anything, comment? Let's see. Should we call up people?
Assalamu
Call up
alaikum.
people. Anyone have anything that you want to say? You can unmute yourself and you can speak.
Assalamu alaikum. You hearing me, Mufti?
So, as we do that, and if anybody wants to, feel free to comment or to say anything that any experiences that you feel they want to share with us. I just want to share one little experience I had recently. Someone speaking headset. Okay, just 1 second. Let me just fix something here. Maybe my speakers is the wrong one. Okay, sorry about that. You can speak again. I think I had the wrong speaker on.
Assalamu alaikum. You hear me now?
Yes, I am.
Okay. In my situation, as I said before, I have two girls. One is 12 and one is 7, and they are like yin and yang. So what would have worked with one is not going to work with the other one, because the other one, she is more of a technology baby. As I said, she more into, the computer, and trying to get her away from it is, she wouldn't do like the first one. If you tell the first one, well, okay, time is up, you have to do something else. The other one, you have to fight with her. You have to battle, you have to negotiate with her to get her away from it. So is how you're coming up with ways to treat with the smaller one as to the bigger one, That's my challenge. Because what I would be accustomed to doing with the bigger one, it's not the same thing I would be doing with the smaller one. And then when I do something different with the smaller one, the bigger one is be like, Mommy, you like her more than me. Sometimes she would say it in a way, but that is what she means, But you don't want it to come off that way.
Right, and that's something I'm sure there'll be a challenge for many parents. You all hearing me still good? It's clean,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So one of the things that I do encourage is discussions in the home. People need to have weekly discussions as a home. I myself might not be doing it as much as I should, but I know definitely it's something that is beneficial. You discuss problems, you discuss issues, you discuss, what as a family we should be doing together. And that's something that is really beneficial, even in understanding the children's different perspectives and hearing how they feel about certain reactions that might happen in the home. Why you did this and why you did that, and what would be their feeling of how it should have been handled, and so on. So those are some really, really good pointers that we should take home, inshallah, as we move forward, because I would always try to put in a practical aspect that we should start implementing. And I do encourage as well, that being said, I do encourage anyone here that can take some notes for us, some really good notes, and things that you find most effective. And inshallah, in the end, you can share those notes with us, so we could try to compile some type of action plan that can benefit everyone as well. I mean, we'll be doing our own efforts as well, but I do think that people can sometimes interact with some information differently, and it can be really beneficial what they see and benefit from. So that's something that really benefits sometimes. But coming back to your point here, right? The example you use of technology and computers and so on. We used to, when we were young, I was young, I remember that they had this statement that was used in shows and movies, right? That was very interesting to me when I was growing up. And because I used to like
things that would be technology oriented and things that showed, computers and hacking and these kind of things. It was like something that, some people have interest in certain topics. So that was something that was interesting to me. And I remember one of the things that they used to always say in these types of shows. They used to say when somebody's like programming that he's plugged in now. And you can't just pull him out, because what happens is mentally he's just focused in. And I never understood that properly. And I was wondering, like, okay, when he starts programming and he's going to hack somebody, is it that he goes into the computer and there's some kind of live wire that connects him, and when you pull it out, he's going to get shocked or something, or it's going to mess up with his brain or something like that? And only when I became an adult and I'm trying to figure it out, because it's in the back of my mind, when I watch kids now and how they become so engrossed, and that happens to us too. You can become so engrossed in a show and your mind then sticks onto that screen that the whole world can be destroyed around you, and you are just completely focused in that small space there, until everything, all emotions that is being felt, is all connected to the screen and what is being looked at. And that's something that happens really, and it's literally an addiction that takes place, that you can't just pull somebody out of the addiction and expect them to be normal again. And especially for children, it's so detrimental to them. It affects them so heavily that we have underestimated what takes place when they are plugged in, quote unquote. So I just wanted to bring that point. Being plugged in is a real thing, and we need to be mindful of it. What happens to our kids when they're plugged in, and trying to come out back and unplug, as you would say? It's a whole different way that you should start treating with it. Assalamu alaikum. I was recently at a loss. Okay, so I this is the one comment that came directly, that I have a 3-year-old child, and she was speaking to an auntie in a car park, and a person did not acknowledge my daughter whatsoever. So two things on that that comes to my mind is, one is that as parents and as adults, it's very important to interact with the kids around us, whether it be kids in the masjid, whether it be kids, our nieces, nephews, and so on. So that's a really important trait. And sometimes as adults, we miss it, because the children are small people, and you interact with the people at your level, and then sometimes you completely forget the little child that is there. Child-friendly, children-friendly people naturally will be inclined to the child right away. Straight away, they look at children. So two things that comes to mind. One is that it is very important to do that as a person, interact with children as much as you can. The second thing is, you do have to sometimes understand the perspective of an adult when they can't notice children. And it's not because sometimes they intentionally do it. Sometimes they're fully engrossed in mentally, and this can happen. I'm not saying that this is the reason. It can happen. A person becomes highly focused mentally on certain situations around them, or certain topics, or what they're going through at home, or what they have to go and teach, or what they're studying, and they are courteous enough to talk to you because they realize, okay, I can't just ignore the person I'm passing by because it's going to cause a problem. They realize there's a ramification for that. So they will quickly talk to you, and they'll smile, and they'll give a gesture, trying to be nice. It's not that they being not being genuine. But what happens is sometimes then they just miss the little child, because they're so focused on just ticking a box with being social to you, and they just miss the child altogether. And that being said, as us who are parents would know, when a adult interacts with your child, there's a very close connection that you feel with that person right away, because you realize that, okay, this person really acknowledges my beloved, my child, who is very close to me and dear to me. That person is acknowledging. So that's a really good way of building relationships as well. So just some perspectives to be mindful of as well, inshallah. We're coming to a close as well, so I'll still try to take as much as we can. But what I'm saying is, generally speaking, we who have been, opened up to that importance, we should interact with children as much as possible. The children value that as well, and they really feel happy to be interacting with adults as well. And that's why I said, very important to try to have good, pious company that your child can interact with, and talk to them sometime in a very friendly and nice way. So they feel connected to that person, and they can sometimes relate issues that they may face, and they may not want to speak to you about it, but they can speak to that person. Okay, yeah. So very good. Yeah, we need to talk to our children and talk to them as much as possible. And today's last comment, inshallah. Unfortunately, there are quite a few single parents in the community at the moment. If you can possibly touch on how a mother navigates raising children, and I think especially boys, as sometimes mothers tend to not know how to navigate raising boys, who will be the men, who would be men, how much responsibility they should have, and how much freedom and so on. So that's very important as well. And part of parenting as well is there is difference in the perspective, in the way, in the manner, the methodology you would parent um, a boy child and a girl child. And there is differences. We are completely different, structurally, socially, the way that we look, the way that we interact, the feelings, the emotions, the hormones, men and women meaning, gender, the male and female gender. Definitely when it comes to children as well, there's a difference in the way and the approaches that you should have towards your kids being male and female as well. And also, the way that we should be bringing them up and raising them with certain values for their future and for when they become adults as well. So very important, inshallah, and as much of it we can touch, inshallah, we definitely will be doing. All right, so that's it for today, inshallah. We'll stop there. And we'll continue properly, inshallah, next week. And we'll start with some of the presentations as well. And do give us much feedback as you can, inshallah. So we'll adjust the course as needed. And we'll try to put certain topics that we feel more important over. And the ones that might be things that we're already comfortable with, we'll probably put a little less importance towards as well, inshallah. So Jazakumullah, and do look out for a survey that we'll send out. And again, if you know anybody who you think this might benefit, please tell them as well. New parents who are, people who are interested in getting married as well, people who are now will be going down that journey. It's very good for them to learn these things really early on, because then that experience and that knowledge, inshallah, will be something that they will start working towards in the years to come. And also parents who are having difficult times with their children as well, and all the people that we think that can benefit, inshallah, please do tell them. It will definitely be something that we can hope that will bring about some goodness and betterment in our communities, inshallah. Just remember, when we bring goodness to that child, inshallah, we'll be building a future, and all of that reward will come to us as well, inshallah. Jazakumullah, and do appreciate you guys being here, and we will continue next week. Jazakumullah khaira, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.